I want to ask you all, if anyone can answer me. What do you know how to use HTML to build an interface? If you know how divs work, what divs are, etc. Let me just open the chat because it's closed. You what? Yeah. You can unmute yourselves and talk. Don't need to write on the chat.
What was the
Don't be
question?
afraid, guys. Don't be afraid.
What do you know, if you know something about HTML, what the HTML is, or if you ever worked with it, what divs are used for, things like this. It's simple stuff.
Aren't divs used for classes and stuff like div class, div class container and stuff, or div
Okay,
class?
you're close. Okay, and anyone
Another
else?
name.
It does the structure of the website, HTML.
Great answer. Anyone else? Okay, it's code. It is and it isn't. It's a mix, but I get you. Okay, so starting from that and answering Kishi at the same time. Look at HTML as a way to structure stuff. Okay, let me just share a screen really quickly. And oh Jesus, I'm typing on two computers at the same time.
Oh my god.
Because I have the guidelines for the class on one computer, not on the other, so it happens. So let's say welcome back, MES Paint. So basically, the class itself was going. It is going to be about I'm missing the words. Let me go back just to really quickly remind myself of it. I'm sorry, guys, but it's been a long week. Okay, so this session is about wireframes, groupings, structures, and we will also see some of the common layouts that the majority of people actually use nowadays. We can see phones, ATMs, shops, etc. And the goal for it is for you to be able to at least create a minimalistic structure for your scripts. The other class we used a platform that allows you to actually build at least the idea. It's a simple tool because I didn't want for everyone to start drawing stuff either on Illustrator or Photoshop or Figma, whatever. In this case, we're going to start from the basics so you can start to understand how HTML works in terms of wireframing and how you should look at the layout and how you should build it when, or how you should think when you are building it. Okay, so starting from something very simple, let's imagine that we have like a box, and this is the place where all the information for our script will be on. Normally, and this is the majority of times focused on websites, not exactly on UIs for FiveM. This box, it's the main box that every HTML has, which is body. The body tag, it's basically whatever happens inside the window. By default, the body has some margins to it. You will learn in a future session how you can basically hide it, how you can basically destroy those margins, and so instead of having all of those margins around the body, you will have only
hey guys, what's going on?
The full window. Hi guys, it's a class. Anyway, so starting from the beginning, every website or every script has its main box. So when you do an HTML file, I'm going to build it. I know there's a command or something to do that, but you have the HTML, you have the headers,
It's exclamation and tab.
exclamation and tab. Let me check. And tab. Oh, thank you. I stopped using this kind of stuff for a long time. I no longer use this. Anyway, so for the FiveM purposes, this is not used. You don't need to think about the titles, but the majority of times people just do the resource name here. So source name here, okay? Like I was saying, so then you have the body. Inside the body, that's where everything happens in terms of structures, okay? So let me just, I know there's a preview somewhere. Okay, I will see it later. Anyway, paint again. So let's imagine that we are building, I don't know, maybe an application or a script for a banking system, so we can go back to the things that we started before. So you have the main body, which is, we will consider this box, okay? And then inside it, you need to build your own space, because you don't want to cover all your screen with what happens in the screen, correct? Because you still want to see the game around here. Oh, sorry. Around these places, you still want to see something around here. Can we put Alf inside the box? You can. So starting from this, and we are only going to cover right now how you structure, then we move forward to how you position things. So first things first, you need a box for it. So you go to your code and just create a div for it. I'm just doing this just because of a structure, okay? So this will be your content. This will be your main content. What I advise you to start with also always is, and based also on the class that I think it was Alfie also working with UIs, you should start from giving it an ID. An ID, like I mentioned on this class, needs to be unique. As this container is completely unique, you can just go there here and write ID and do something like main container. I also advise you to do this if you have two words separated with a capital letter, for you to have a better readability. In the past, we used something like this. I don't like it anymore, and it feels weird for me. But nowadays, I only use some things like this. So now we have the main. We have the main container. So the main container is done. Let's move forward. Now, let's imagine that you want to give your user some kind of information about what is seeing. So normally what people do is they kind of position like a logo over here. They do like a title for the banking around here maybe, and just to add more stuff, then you have something this in this place like the time or the hour they are actually in, can be inside the game or outside the game. You can consider both. So let's start from here. One thing that I want you to keep in mind is, and I need to change colors really quickly. What I want you to keep in mind is when you're building something with HTML, it works like you're writing something. Well, in China, Japan, I'm not sure, but I think so. In the Arabs, at least, the people that write those fancy letters, they write in a different way. But normally, the behavior of all the contents that you have around works from top left to the middle. So every time you create a new box inside another, that box will be on your top left. They will always start on your top left. So the behavior comes from the top left to the bottom right. It works like this. Okay. So given that we have, well, I raised the third box, but let's create these 3 boxes. So let's go back here. So you have the main content and you want a box at the top, which will be this one. But this box, if you think about it, it's better to have a full box that goes all across the page, and then inside you place the boxes that you want, and you place whatever you want. So what you do is you have the main box, which is, in this case, it's other, and we can just div. Let me just create the div like this first. You have the 3 boxes or the 4 boxes inside. Okay, this distances that you have here, they are important. It's called indentation. The idea is for you to kind of understand what's happening, and in VS Code there's a good thing that you can open and close those in order for you to have a better readability of what you're doing. So moving on. So let's imagine I'm going to place a logo here. So this will be our ID. Jesus, he figured out what I was saying. Logo. Then you have a title. I will go back to this because what I'm doing does not make sense in a way. And then, for example, let's go here and do ID time, for example. And let me save it for a while because I want to show you something. Let HTML. Alfie, is there a way for us to preview directly inside VS Code? Because I know there was.
Yeah, there's an extension. I don't know the exact name, but you can search for live preview. It should pop something up.
Preview.
Mm.
Because since
Yeah,
I started with React, it does automatically, so that I don't need the thing.
yeah.
Okay, so
There we go.
okay, so basically, by this you don't see anything because you don't have CSS and you don't have any kind of styling to this main our main structure. This is we can call this like a skeleton of the website. That's why you don't see anything. There's no meat on it. Don't joke about it, Gishi. So in here, we're going quickly just to do just so we can see a border, a 1 pixel solid black, so you can see that our main container, it's up here. And you say, yeah, but it's only online. Yes, because there's no content inside. If for example, if you want to place here some non-breaking space, you want to place some empty stuff so you can see it. Once I start adding it, you can actually see it expand. But let's add this little border also to our other divs. I know there's a way to do this. Yeah, forget it. I will work it like the old ways. Okay. So we have the main one. That's why let me change the color for red maybe. Yeah. Okay. So can you see it at least? So you need for me to increase like a little. Let me just go back here. Jesus. Can you actually see the color, or you prefer for me to change? I'm going to give some tips of CSS, Donalds. not that many, because it's the first thing that you need to understand is how things work in terms of structure. Then you move on. Look at CSS as a way to style your skeleton or to put some meat on it. Yes, I do use CSS in React, and I also use super CSS in React also. But the majority of time, it's mainly basic CSS. I was very good on it, so I kind of struggle still to move on to super CSS, which is way better. Okay, so as you can see, I'm placing the styles inside each of the divs. We are going to change this, and we're going to include a file that will only have the styling for it, and we will use these that also Alfie explained on the last session. And I think it's important for you to start understanding that also, and I think it's also important for us as professors start kind of melting us together for you to have more information about the same thing, which is better for you to understand it as a student. Let me just do something on the other computer really quickly, because I can't lose focus. Okay. What we are building right here, we can call it like an organization of components or structures. We can also call it like that. But this is not what we want, right? We want it to look something like this. So we have like a box on the left, a box in the middle, and a box on the right. If we're going to do this in a pure CSS way, if you want to do this in a pure CSS way, it's a little bit more complex. It's not simply placing something there and it's done. This is this way that I did is a way you can actually do this also inside Chrome. For example, if you imagine that you are okay, this specific item that I built, it's not exactly what I want, but I don't understand what's happening. So what we do is we go to the Chrome, to the browser. It can be Chrome, it can be Opera, it can be whatever you want. And with it, we edit the CSS in there, so you can actually understand what's happening. So let's do something like it, but inside the elements, and a little. I will try to get this project into another folder so we can join then with a file of CSS. So first things first, our main container, yeah, we can accept it that it goes one way to another, or you prefer to have a lower size. What do you think about this? Do you prefer it like covering the full website from one side, well, the full screen from one side to the other, or you prefer to have it a little bit more in the middle, let's say? You can unmute yourselves and speak your mind.
In the middle is quite cool, to be fair.
Okay. So, and we need to lower the size, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do it with pure CSS. We're going to define its width. We're going to define it, for example, 80%. I prefer to use either percentages or a thing called viewport sizes. For example, if you go in VW, it does the same because it's using the size of the window to change the size of the boxes. Okay, I will keep the VW, which means viewport width. Okay, if you want to do the same thing for the height, you can do just VH. In this case, as we don't well, width you can't, but with height you can. It kind of forces the box or the element to have the size that you wish. But let's keep it like that. But then you go here and you say, yeah, but it's not exactly at the middle. There's a CSS trick for it. what you do is you define the margins as automatic, and it moves to the middle. Okay. So let's go on and go inside the header. We want to keep the header with the same size as our main container, but we want the logo, for example, to have a width of maybe 10 VWs, for example, and we want the title to have. It's easier to make things like this. So we get this 10 VW here. The time will have 10 VW also. And in the middle, we want it with the rest, which should be, in this case, 60, because you need to discount the size of the screen. And then you say something like, yeah, but it feels like it's like a manly thing. Let's say it like this. You want to move it from the top to the middle. There's another trick for that. You can do something like this. It's top 50%. Margin top, for example. You can use margin for this. And it moves. The problem with this, normally what we do, we use specific frameworks for this kind of stuff. And in the case of React, we use Tailwind for it, because they have some classes they use a thing called flex that you also have in CSS, and they kind of have also JavaScript behind it that positions itself in the same way. This preview, probably, Donalds, probably. We will test it in a second. I'm just covering this part right now so you can understand how CSS works and how you can actually use your elements to change everything that you have inside. Okay. Now starts one thing that sometimes it's hard to understand. It took me a while for it to understand it. Mainly because the majority of CSS that I know that I used over the years was self-taught, so I struggled with it for a while. One thing, when you want to move what's inside with that we call children, so this is the mother, these are the children, and this is the grandmother. When we want to move these items, depending on what their mother says, they need to be relative to those ones. So you do something like this, you go position, and you use relative. And as you see, nothing changed. Correct? Nothing has changed. But if you do something like I'm using the old ways for this because they are the most simple ones to start with. Then you can move forward with flags, with item centered, etc. But these are how we did it back in the days. So you can just float things left. As you see, what happened? They moved. Then we can do this also float left. It also moved, but then we have a problem. But let's deal with it later. So float and do left also. Okay. With this, because you have the relative, you can even move it around and set it, and you set the position inside for each of these. Yeah, you need to all. Yes, true. Thank you. You need to do more than this, but as you can see, there's a problem. Our main container suddenly closed, and the boxes are outside the main container. This happens because I'm using floats to position stuff. So we created a trick. So inside the mother, you do something like div style. Yeah, that's it. Clear both. And they stay inside because you're clearing the floats that you defined. Okay, this is too big, so I need to close it a little bit down. This is almost trial and error. You need to find the correct place. We're like I said, I'm using the old days for the old ways for this. So 5, 6, it's too much. I'm not sure if you can do this. Yeah, you can. 7, 8, 9. Okay. Because of the border. This happens because of the border. If I didn't have the border, no problem. So this is a way that you reset the floatings of every element that you actually use for. Okay, let me just start to do then the other thing that we just mentioned. So let's try a new text file and go something like this first. I will explain you in a second what it is. And this will be our style.css. Let me just copy it to another place so we can just merge everything. Let me just close this down really quickly to place it in a project. New folder, session 3, and check getting this one and this one, getting it inside the thingy. Projects, session 3. Okay, I have both files in here. Let me just close everything. Close, yeah, close it. Sorry, exit for a little, and then yeah, I don't have VS Code here. I'll open it another way. Okay, let's close this down. Don't save. I'm going to open folder, documents, projects, and it's session 3. Okay, and let's just initialize a repository so we can then later on we can place it inside GitHub. So we have our index, we have our style. Let me place it side by side. And okay, so let's move all of these to the CSS. The first thing that you need to do is open up a link which is relative to the style sheet and the file. So from now on, we can place everything in here. So, but you ask, so how can we say what are we styling inside the CSS? Like Alfie mentioned, you have this for IDs and this for classes. So main container, you kind of writes it, and you can just copy everything and place it inside. And when you can delete this style thing. They always give some priority to you place inside the styling. So if you need to override something, that's the best place for you to do it. There's also a way to force it. And again, nothing changed. But let me just place it down here. I think it's better. But if I do the margins and change it to 20, as you can see, I'm just changing the CSS and it's basically moving around. So let's keep it to 50 for now. Okay, so we can move everything here. Our header, our header is also an ID. We will change it. Jesus, header. I'm too much used to the Mac. Jesus. Okay, position is again in the right place, and we move on. When I started writing the title part, I said the following: I'm doing something wrong, but I will cope with it and I will move on with it. Why? I don't know if you remember our first classes, I mentioned something about items hierarchy. So, given that hierarchy, if you have inside your layout, if you have another title, it's important for that title to have the same, let's call it, attributes as the other title has. It may depend on only on sorry. It may depend only on sorry, Jesus, I'm broken. um Let me just think. Okay. It may depend. It may have multiple importances. For example, you should, in terms of SEO, for example, SEO means search engine optimization. For those who don't know, H1 it's only used once per page. You should not use it more than once per page. If you use it more than once per page, Google will feel like you are spamming everything. So your website will lower in terms of ranking. Given this idea, I like to apply it also to a FiveM script. So instead of having all of this, I would do something like it's a class first, and the classes that I will have with the name title will have this specific CSS. I think I need to roll back a little so it's better for us to start seeing some interesting stuff. But so dot title, open up the brackets, and you place the CSS here. As you can see, I changed the character behind the title name, and it still works because of this. Okay. I placed this at the top. This star means that all the elements inside a given website, in this case, or a given container, will have the same properties. What we normally do if we are building only HTML for our websites, we normally do this: do margin 0, sorry, not the no, exactly, the margin 0, padding 0. Why? Remember this thing that we did, that we positioned it a margin top of 50%? The problem with this margin top is it's 50% plus the default margin of the body. So if we actually remove and do these, it removes all the margins that are around. Let me show you an example. Let's open up body. Sorry, body. Create a background for it. Attribute name. Yeah, you can also do it like that. But you should not call it like attribute name, because it's not actually an attribute name. I will show you in a second. Okay, let's place the background full black, and let's remove the margins for a little. All good, right? But let's do something even better. Let's change the HTML and do it also background color, but I want it white. Yeah, you cannot see it because the body moves with it. Yeah, my body is not a good thing to do. So, but we can do another way. We can do the main container. Remove this and do a background for it. Color, yeah, but let's do it white. Sorry, 255, 255, 255. Do you know how all these colors work? What RGB is and what's the difference? Okay. So, as you can see, our main container, it's not close to the top. But if I go here and do that margin 0 and padding 0, it sticks to the top. Because there's a default margin and a default padding for all the elements in a website. So you need to always consider this. So if there's something that is moving that in a way that you don't like it to move, one of the biggest examples that you can actually see, it's like building here, for example, H1 and a title. H1, okay, resource name, for example, okay. It has these margins at the top and these margins at the bottom, but the star is styling where in a time it's styling everything, even the HTML tag. It's literally styling everything. Got it? If I place this, as you can see, the margins, those big margins are gone. Now you have you are free to decide how you want things to happen. If you want to move them in a different way from the original version, which is something like this, or you want to change positions, because for example, let's imagine that you want to place that header, you want to give it some top margin. I will erase everything else because I think it's not important right now. Let's imagine that you want that header, and in this case, as you can see, there's no class, there's no ID. All these elements can be also called on CSS. For example, we're going to H1, you just write H1, you want to align it to the center, for example. It aligns to the center, okay? And by doing this, it moves. But as you can see, there's still a huge margin. Yeah, you can even change this. Let me show you something very interesting. I think you will like it, Elbasha, because this is one of the most interesting things that you can actually create. Okay, let's create like a menu or some kind of a menu. You can just go here and do li, open up the brackets and say list style and place it like none. The dots are gone. So every time there's a listing, it applies to all the elements with that name. Now, moving on to the thing that Railwind just mentioned, let's imagine that all of these will be menu item. Okay, let's do it like this. Let's call it, we will call these two menu items. The last one will not be called menu items. Now imagine this, you can do menu items and it changed position. The first two, they changed, but let me change the colors itself because I think it's easier to watch. Text, sorry, color, and not blue, it's the same, it's the main, or black. Sorry, no, black will not happen because of the A. Okay, thank God this happened. Okay, so we're trying to define the text as black, but they are still blue. Why? Because the default color for every link on any website, it's blue. But we want to change it. But we just want to change there. We just want to change those that are menu items. What you can do is open up a space, and by opening up a space, you're saying, I want to affect its children. So you do this A, and they're black. So this way, you are only affecting what's inside of the items that are grouped by the class menu items. So you're affecting it by defining this. But let's imagine that you want a different kind of item or a different kind of menu item that is outside of the LE, and you do something like div, and you do class again. I'm not building a perfect website or something like this. It's just for the purpose of teaching. Okay, so bear with me. Menu items, and let's place something like lorem lipsum dolor, for example. This is basically dummy text. Let me show you something that is you will believe, you will think that it's interesting for you. If you go here, lipsum, there's this website that you can actually, for example, you want to create one paragraph, random paragraph, you can generate and copy it and use it on as a dummy content. You can use this for that. Or imagine, let's see that you want to test Jesus, what did I do? Okay, imagine that you want to test a title, for example. You don't want it to start with lorem lipsum, you just want like 3 words. Generate. It generates this words here. So you can just go back to your code and change it to whatever you want. So, like I was saying, so you want to keep this one as black, but as menu items, you want these ones to have, for example, like a specific background for each one of them. But you already have this. You are declaring the variable. You are declaring the class. So what you can do is, instead of just having the li, which applies to everything, you can have li and include the class right away. So you do li dot in this case menu items, and it will, let me just remove the float, and it will only affect the items, the elements that have the li, and which have the class menu item. This is why, in terms of, like, I'm going to call it coding anyway, but in terms of code, people do not consider HTML as an actual language. There isn't kind of a logic to it, and it's just for structure. Because if we remove all the styling that we have, you will lose all the structure that we have. That you will not see anything. It will be like small boxes all around, places everywhere. When you're building something like this, you need to consider the following, which is you need to look at the full screen that you are building as little boxes. Even if you don't have these borders like we do right now, they are still boxes. They occupy a space on the screen, and that space is controllable by your CSS. It's controllable by your stylings. Right? So if we actually remove all of these, and I can't remove everything, but I will do it like this. You will, okay, we have the border. Let me remove just this at the top, just for the sake of explaining. So if I remove all the CSS, look what happens. The CSS is mailing for styling. I believe that probably during your days navigating around the internet, you already found like a website that looks like this, because the CSS file just broke and it shows like this. So going back, so far, have you understood how hierarchies work in this sense, in terms of the difference of having like the main item, then moving into it? So can you add like class ID and tag? You can, but you shouldn't. you need to understand something, which is you need to understand that every item, it's an entity of itself. You can group them, you can name them. By naming them, I mean the IDs, and the IDs need to be unique. So, for example, if I have the main container, I will only have one main container on the full website. Okay, that's why nowadays you also see tags like something like this, like nav, and then you have things inside, because these tags are faster to implement than creating a menu and having them with a menu item, etc. It's faster to do this. The HTML evolved into something a little bit more organic. So whenever you start building something, you need to break it down like a puzzle and position things in order to so that puzzle can actually fit with each other. Okay, but kind of answering also to your question, Elbasha, let's try something. We have menu items, and you want to call it this first. So you can have two classes on the same item. You can actually use two classes on the same item. There's another trick for that, but we'll go there in a moment. So you can do something like, again, first. And only the first item has that space. And you can move on and introduce more and more and more. But the more you increase with this, the harder will be for you to read. That's why I don't agree with it. Okay, that's if you go look, if you start looking at websites nowadays, you will see 3, 4, 5, 6 classes depending on the framework they are using. If they are using something like Tailwind, for example, they add classes depending on what they want, how they want to style their HTML. Okay, but since you are building something from scratch, you're not using an actual framework for it, I advise you to limit yourself to a maximum of four things, because you have a lot of stuff that you can use. You can use the tags itself, you can use the classes, and you can use more. Let's imagine that you want this link to go to the index.html, for example, and you want this specific item without the class itself to change color, for example. Let's keep the thingy on. You want to change it, make it change color, so you can go li menu items, open up this, write inside something like href equals index.html, and then color, and that, yeah, violet. And I'm missing, yeah, it's because I need to add the a, so space a. You can actually use these are the attributes. You can use attributes to identify what element you want to change. The greatest thing inside CSS it allows you so many possibilities that you can actually move everything around and make it look better and better and better and better and better. Let's do something really quickly, which is remove first. Let me remove this crap because, well, let's keep it for a while. And top margin top 15% again. Okay, let's make border radius 50% also. Too much because it comes round, but I want to make it like 15 pixels, for example. We start doing something, and we want to make this background a little bit more grayish instead of that's too much. Or 199, 190. You have multiple ways to use this. You can use this part. RGB stands for red, green, and blue. It's only used for screens because screens are an addition of light. The more light you add, that's why the numbers grow. The more light you add, the closer to the white you get. So if you had red, green, and blue, because I don't know if you knew this, but all those pixels only have these three colors. But once you increase all those colors to the maximum, which is 255, you are basically adding more of that specific color of pixel. But you can also do something like this. You can just go here in a hashtag and use a thing called hexadecimal. You can do F1, 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 and it's still a little grayish, but let's change it to 00, 00, 00, 00, 00, black. But I don't know, FF, 00, FF. I'm showing you this because if you're looking at colors on Illustrator, on Photoshop, on Figma, whatever, you can get the colors from the application if you need. On Figma, I know there's a way for you to export directly to HTML immediately. Be careful because sometimes it makes mistakes. You need to move things around. That's why it's so important for you to at least know a little about CSS and what CSS does. Okay. So let's place it a little bit grayish. Okay, too much, too dark. BA, 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 still too dark. Let's go with even further. Okay, I think it's better. So now we have all of these structures, our skeletons, our base skeleton we are building. So let me just remove some things from here. First, this needs to go back again. Nowhere. And the size is full because we removed the size width. And we can just do something like I don't know, 50%, and do the margin. Okay, I was about to do something, but I want to explain you one thing. As you can see, you have margin top 15%, and I was about to do this. Have you noticed what happened? Does anyone knows why? You can unmute and talk. We allow.
Because margin top overrides, like margin overrides margin top.
Exactly. Margin has margin top, margin bottom, inline starts, blocks, etc. With this, by adding the margin after we define the margin top, it will override what we wrote before, so we can do it in a different way. We start with margin, which is which is the main attribute, and this is the child attribute. The same thing happens for radius. Let me show you something interesting. So border radius and Jesus. Border radius, yeah. For example, top, left, and let's do 0. Good. You don't want to? What did I do wrong? The fuck? Did I do wrong? Border Top left radius. Forgot the radius. I knew it. I was missing something. Like I said before, I no longer use CSS this much because we have Tailwind that allows you almost to do anything, just for little tweaks. That's all we need. So this way, we define all corners with 25 pixels of radius, but I want the top left radius of 0, so it has like this sharp. Yeah, Tailwind is way better. I want this sharp corner at the top. Let's wait for Elbasha. You can talk, Elbasha. You don't need to write if you wish. Well, anyone can talk if they wish.
I just don't want to interrupt you, man.
Don't worry. Don't worry. It's good
uh,
because it's
can
important
we
for
learn
us.
can we learn Tailwind directly, like just with skipping CSS, or we have to learn CSS first?
Look, if you want to build a website without knowing how you actually use Tailwind on a basic website using only HTML, I do not advise you to do that. I rather have you use something called Bootstrap. Which is this. You can just import it with CAVN here, for example. And we can move to our code really quickly.
What's that?
You will see in a bit. It's something very similar to Tailwind, but
Okay.
it can be used. It can actually be used for HTML, pure HTML. Tailwind, it's not that good. Okay.
Okay.
In that sense, in that kind of sense. Okay, because Tailwind, you need to place it inside your website. With CDN, it's kind of hard. CDN, it's like calling the information from outside of your website. In the FiveM world, I do not advise you to do it with links to outside of the script itself. Why? Because sometimes they break, and if they break, you lose all the styling of everything that you've done. So what people if you use, for example, this if you use, for example, Bootstrap, you can just copy this, go to another website. You have this stuff, you just save it, call it, for example, Bootstrap min. Let me just place it on the documents. Go to our project, session 3. Okay, save, done. Okay, let's move it back to our code. And instead of having this, you can just do something like rel style sheet href. Oh, sorry. And in our case, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, it's here. Name CSS. And I advise you to move this back down. I will explain you really quickly why. I will provide you with this. Yeah. The advantage of Bootstrap compared to Tailwind, for example, for all of you that is starting to build your own scripts, is Bootstrap already has a lot of the elements that you normally use, like panels, cards, stylings for the inputs, etc. That's why once I placed this here, all the styling changed. Let me remove it again so you can see it. See, automatically the system goes towards what what Bootstrap tells you, and it uses classes, which is interesting. Let me remove this. Let's start with an h1 resource name. Yeah, can be resource name. Then we're going to have the main container. Yeah, but we can do it. Yeah, div id main container main container, and we define a class. Call it container fluid, for example, which allows you to move it around a little bit better. And close the div. Then let's imagine that we want to add like a card. Sorry, class card. Let's write something inside so you can see it. As you can see, it already has like a box. Then you have div plus, I think you have card title. I couldn't quite remember this because it's been a
It
long time.
automatically does it for it.
Yeah.
Okay, and if I want to edit some things from the automatic.
If you don't want, you can have this. For example, you have the main container, the card, and the card title. Let's change the Bootstrap automatically decided that this should be this size and have this styling. You can just go here and say it's something like, okay, so on the main container, I want the card class. Inside the card class, there's another thing called card. Well, I missed the word, the letter. I have a thing called card title that I want to change to a color. I don't know, violet. And this way, you kind of override what Bootstraps tells you. That's why I'm a little bit focusing on CSS, because if you learn CSS as a basic, when you start moving either Bootstrap, Tailwind, or something else, you will figure out a way to override what they want.
So I still align the text in CSS, but Bootstraps like makes it like a box automatically. That's the thing, yeah.
It makes a box. It does it way more.
Okay.
For example, the thing that you were mentioning. Let me just place something here. Like, so El Basha. It's right there. So yeah, it is. Okay. So let's imagine you want something like this, but you can just go here and do text center.
Oh, okay.
You have a lot of things. If we go to the Bootstrap. Bootstrap. Sorry? Anything? Okay. On the documentation, you have all the information. For example, breaking points. You have it breaks, it separates stuff. Let me see if they have like an example here, like you can actually see. No, breaking points not the best thing, but okay. Let's go, for example, for accordion. Accordion is this. See, they only have like the base accordion. Then they gave them an ID, and only and completely without CSS they built this. And so you can see, I can just copy it, go to my code, and let's set it, for example, not here but here, div class card body, and you can paste it, and then you have that accordion that we're just looking at. Okay, I'm missing one file at the top. I'm just using Bootstrap main, but they also have the JavaScript part that you need, which is this one. Copy, place it here. What we will do the same for it, so we can use it outside, inside the script with safely. Not this one. This one. Let's just get there, save the file, Yeah, it can be something like this. Save it. Go back. I just need to erase this search that is here. It's the same way that you import JavaScript files to this. It's the exact same thing. So you can just go here and go copy this, rename, and .is. Okay. Now watch. That's why Bootstrap was the first main how can I call it? The first main styling library that you can that was implemented in back in the days. This was the first one that we actually used. But like I was telling you, as you can see, I have no JavaScript here. I only placed the classes. This is an item. This is what's inside the header of the item. This is the button for the toggle itself. That's why you have PS toggle collapse, target collapse 1, because it's going to collapse the first one, which is the target. That's why it says target. Are expanded controls if you controls is for this, because you need to tell which one of these buttons will collapse the other. For example, let me just show you with a thing that you shouldn't do, but anyway, let's do it. You have collapse 1. See the ID? That's why you need to be careful. Let's if we change it to 2. Let's imagine that you want to collapse the first one. You can no longer do it. I'm changing the last one, but you can no longer collapse everything. And because I'm closing, I'm using the second button, and on the second button it says collapse 2, and this has the same name. The problem with this is the system does not understand if you're trying to close the first one or the next one, because like I said, mentioned before, IDs need to be unique. So you need to go 1. But this is a very good example for you if you want to simplify stuff. And if you want to start from the basics, I advise you to start from Bootstrap instead of going into Tailwind right now, because Tailwind does not have this kind of styling. And at least with this, you have like a base to start. And once you start evolving and understanding a little bit better how websites or scripts should look like, you start changing stuff, you start understanding how it works and how the classes work inside, then you can move to Tailwind. That's what I advise. That's how I did what I did when I started. And Tailwind just came to me in the last few years. It's something very recent to me. I really like Tailwind, but at first I missed this kind of already created elements that just saves my life, because you want to make this kind of stuff. Let's imagine, for example, that you have like a script that has like a guide for your players. Instead of building a huge JavaScript code so it can toggle between those, you can just create an accordion like this and say something like how to get a job, and you can just write whatever you want inside. You can just build the text inside, and instead of having those huge codes around, you finally found you have a way to simplify stuff instead of going around and around and around and around. Let me show you something. I think it's important. Let me just style this one like this and make it. I think it doesn't. It's not supposed. Sorry. Okay. Have you noticed something that it's not good in some ways, because the background is gray? I just changed the body, but the box is still white. If you were using Tailwind, and if you haven't said on the classes that the background for this box was white, it will be transparent. So it would have the same background as the main body. This is the limitation for Bootstrap. This is the limitation for Bootstrap, but you can override it. You can just go here, for example, and say that you want all the elements, accordion, sorry, accordion. Yeah, sure. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm basically giving the classes immediate solutions, so they can start build things. Okay. So I will just post really quickly this. Okay, this is how you get Bootstrap. Do not forget that the system that you're looking for, it's this thing called CDN. Okay, and you should download the files that they give you. They give you the links, because the href, it's the link for it. Download the files to your script and include them on the script. This way, you can actually build things really, really, really quickly. Let me show you something very, very fast. Components. These are super CSS. I don't care.
You can build a professional menu with this tool, right?
You sorry?
You can build a professional menu UI, like
Yeah,
UI menu.
yeah. We did it a lot back in the days. I have 3-4 million lines of code in an application combining PHP and JavaScript that
Yeah.
all the structure only uses Bootstrap, nothing else. We only use Bootstrap for all we style everything, but then the logic part of it, it's JavaScript and PHP, and in the thing called Ajax, which that allows us to make requests to the PHP. But you use the Bootstrap a lot because it simplifies your life. It's a thing like quality of life. Okay.
Yeah.
One example that you see a lot of things like these are actually this stuff. For example, it has a call out and it's called info. This call out info looks like this. It will show like this. Let me just quickly show you. So let's add at the bottom. So we have the accordion here. Okay, let's build a new card. Div class card. Build a new card. And let's build card body, blah blah blah. As you can see, I just wrote card and there's already a card there. And remember the spacings? Look, MT like 3. And it just moves. It's simple. It's very simple. Let me just do what they did over here. So they have this card, which is called callout, and you go div class callout. Let's write something inside. Lorem lipsum dolor. Sorry.
Each class has their own design, right?
Yeah. Callout info. It's not changing for some reason. It should be. Sorry?
No, it's my bad.
Okay. I thought someone was.
No, I told you that there's people around me. That's why.
Yeah. Don't worry. But you can do something background, primary. Whoa, they changed this. In the past, you could do this. Color modes. Well, hey, wait, color. Okay, body secondary. Oh, they call it BS. Really? No. It's not BS. The fuck? Okay, but I would need to explore this more because I completely ditched Bootstrap nowadays because something so it's old. It's something that nowadays we don't actually use it because the only problem that Bootstrap has that makes it hard for the majority of people is the responsiveness. Okay, it's hard for you to define responsiveness for this. It moves around, it looks good, okay, but if you start building grids, if you start doing those, it will be hard for you. Do you remember there was a class that I mentioned about grids? You can actually build grids with Bootstrap also. Like you have like the grid, the class is row, then you have the columns. It kind of creates the grid by itself, and then you can reposition everything if you need. It does the grid for you. That's why it's a thing of quality of life. Tailwind is also quality of life, but this specifically has already built-in components. Tailwind doesn't have those. You need to build them from scratch in order to make it work. Let me just do a committed for this very quickly. Yeah. And let me show you something so we can wrap it up and Kishi won't kill me. Joking. Okay, for example, this. What you see over here, so background white, shadows, etc. All of these come from Tailwind. So yeah, I can cd management npm run dev. So this nav bar, it's basically this top thingy. So I needed to define everything. But if you see, for example, these boxes, instead, if you remember, on Bootstrap, you just write card and it's done. In this case, let me just grab one. I'm not sure what it is. Let me just confirm it. Wrong place. Here. It's a metric card, exactly. Metric card. Okay. See the amount of code that I need to write in that specific place just to do something like this. And with Bootstrap, you just need to come here instead of having all of these classes. You can just on Bootstrap just write card, and it assumes this this kind of look. Let's
Can
call
you
it
use both of them?
Can you what? Sorry.
Can we use like Tailwind and Bootstrap
You
at the same
can,
time?
but there will be some conflict between them. So I don't advise you to use both of them at the same time.
Oh, okay.
It will create conflict because there's a lot of classes between Tailwind and Bootstrap that are actually the same thing. So it will get confused and will break your code. What are you building something already, or the question was just because
No,
we
no.
didn't.
I'm not confident enough to build the UIs yet.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What you should do, and this is for all of you, explore Bootstrap, start building something for yourself with it. Try to understand how you move with it also, because how you can add the margins, how you can reposition everything, etc. At least to start building something. And once you feel confident enough, then move on to a different thing. If you want to go Tailwind, sure, but I advise you to start from Bootstrap first, then go to Tailwind, because after you use Bootstrap for a while, you start understanding better how the classes work and how you can actually position them and make it better. In terms of if you want to use, if any one of you use something like React, for example, you have multiple things that you can use. You can use this. It's called headless UI. That already has some things pre-styled. So you can see there's some things already pre-styled. You have Bulma UI. It already has a lot of things also pre-styled. You can do all of this stuff that you can see on the screen. If you go to the documentation, you'll even see more like elements, blocks, display the blocks, buttons. This is how the button looks like. See, multiple colors, etc. But if you start from CSS, from Bootstrap, you start to understanding better how the classes work. And once you start understanding how the classes work, you will find some difficulties. Some hard. It will be hard for you to kind of, I want to position this over there, but Bootstrap does not allow me. That's when you go back to the basics. You go back to CSS and force the system to have the positioning or the color or whatever you want and change it. Force it to become whatever you want to do. That's what I advise you to do, because this way you are training yourself into two things at the same time: pure CSS and classes for styling. Okay. Okay, guys. Is there any question that you have? Is there anything that you need from me that I will try to build you some kind of a sheet thing, like a sheet code, something like this, to at least give you the major? Well, I think we can find a website for it. CSS sheet, for example. Yeah. Okay, you have. I'll give you this website so you can actually also use. This is great for you to see what CSS can do and how you do it. It's possible. Yeah, we can do it. We can do it. I'm currently building a UI for a script. This. I don't know if I know there's a lot of people that already seen this, but this uses React. You can just move things around and open up stuff. Everything that you see was styled with Tailwind. Everything. Any questions? I think we can wrap it up. It's sexy. For the doc type, it's exclamation mark and tab. Yeah, you can show it, Royal. Why not? By the way, Alfie, I figured out this.
What's up?
I figured this out. The recordings.
Oh my god, how did you do it in the end?
I use a library on the server side using that code that you gave me.
Amazing, yeah. JavaScript is very good, brother. At least for,
Yeah.
that kind of. So, oh, that's an evidence archive. So you're gonna have like detectives with,
Yeah.
mics and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my. Wiring people up, sending them undercover. That's great.
Yeah. This is Royal Wind stuff. Royal Wind, one question. Are you building the logic behind this?
Yes. also. Not entirely. The UI part for that one. But for
Okay,
other scripts, yes.
I'm asking you this because this is a multi-tracking system, a multi-track system. Okay, this is something that I'm actually building at the moment. Well, I figured out recently what I wanted to do, and in my case, I can convert the full file into one single file. So you have like tracks, like master, okay,
Yeah.
master, left and right, it's okay, but bass, vocals, and subwoofer, etc. I can record it in a way that the result is a single file.
Oh. So you mean you like echo the one track and you change that and send one with
Yeah.
from the UI.
Yeah, you can mix them out. You can mix the tracks and expose them. Yes, you can do that. It's quite easy. But to convert them then to a single file, it took me, I don't know, 4 weeks maybe. Alfie, do you
For
remember when I
for
started?
this one specifically,
Actually, no, but it was a little while ago.
I'm building the UI logic with the controllers and that, and some other one. It's making the effects and the like 3D music. But for yeah, for that one.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I'm thinking on building something like this, but to actually send video and audio directly to YouTube's Twitch or something like this, so you can directly live stream from inside the server to outside the server.
That would
Oof.
be very nice.
That's
Yeah,
why I
probably
yeah.
it would be nice if you add the DUI.
If what? Sorry.
If you add an DUI,
Hmm.
like 3D UI texture, basically you replace the
Hmm.
texture of an object
Yeah.
or a scaffold.
What I think I'm doing, what I'm trying to do with this kind of idea is, for example, you are on a news company inside the server, inside your RP, for example,
Yeah.
and you're doing news. This way, your server can have like a YouTube channel where people that are covering news around the server uh, are live streaming for the TVs inside the server and for YouTube at the same time. This way, you're doing some publicity to your own service through those news. So it's a win-win situation.
Nice.
Okay.
So, have you closed the recording, Kishi?
Uh,
You have not. You can close the recording. I think we can wrap it up in terms of class. We will stay with the questions, of course. Not sure. Anyone has another question? Does anyone want to know
uh,
something that it feels very
yeah,
hard to
I
do?
have one. I
Tell me.
have one. Do you know about any ways to fix Tailwind 4 in FiveM because it uses color mix and the Chrome version of FiveM doesn't work with color mixes?
That's weird because I'm actually using Tailwind 4
Oh,
on that UI and it works on the server.
are you using custom colors?
Yeah.
Ah, that's why. I can't use colors. The Tailwind colors. And
Oh,
I
you
like
want to
them.
use the Tailwind colors itself?
Yeah, yeah. And in the fourth version, they are using color mix.
Because it's here, but you're making me a very good question. I'm not sure if I'm actually using classes for this or not. Let me confirm it. Let me just click over here. Let me just. So background gray. I using the colors from them,
Oh,
and I'm using Tailwind 4. This is Tailwind 4.
I don't know. When I tried that, like any color mix didn't work.
what you're probably mentioning are you mean the gradients, no?
No, the colors. Like
Just the
they are
colors.
not using hex anymore. They are using color mix for more vibrant colors.
That's strange. Because I'm pretty sure this is Tailwind 4. I'm pretty sure. Let me just confirm it really quickly. It's easier. So package. No, 3. You're
Yeah.
right. Am I using Tailwind 4 on the other? That's not a script. That's actually a platform. I'm trying. Do I have it here? No. Damn. Let me just lower this a little, because I believe that I'm using Tailwind 4